Hi,
Thank you, everybody.
everyone. Thank you so much to all of you for this really rich discussion. I'm Maria from Agam Agenda, and I'm in charge of creative mobilization as well as partnerships. Soon, you're going to learn more about the workshop to follow, and we're going to go into breakout groups. But just briefly before that, I want to talk about why we're doing this, why engage in a creative exercise. Acknowledging also the immense privilege that comes to having this time to even think about these topics together, resonating a lot with what Chuck mentioned at the beginning. And also want to underline that this is not therapy or therapeutic space or art therapy. It's a space for connection. So just bringing it back to the topic, it seems like we're feeling a confluence of so many existential crises, and they often get trapped into this very individualized or medicalized framework for understanding or talking about them. And even the word anxiety is pathologized often. And the responses actually that we're sharing are not necessarily something to be pathologized or to be fixed, because what many are experiencing is actually a healthy reaction to all the types of violences that we are experiencing, both directly and indirectly. So something which is not often seen as an issue of disconnection or spiritual distress or a crisis of relationship is framed as this only a mental health issue, right? So the conversation opens space for deeper thinking on structural pathologies and problems of the dominant industrial capitalist culture, and also the possibilities of making the world anew, of different ways of world making. And I think that these emotions, or we can call them relational distress as well, exist also to compel us towards more restorative relationships, towards kinship with the non-human. And it's actually quite ironic that we're at the brink of a lot of unravelings and a lot of loss, and yet this is the time that we're in deep need of connection. So this is also an opportunity. And I want to offer that reflection that Chuck also brought up about language. And so opening up our languages, and I think we started doing this just now, is really important. And not only bringing it into the local languages and local ways of understanding what's happening, but also in ways of sensing the world. So opening up language beyond the word, beyond the verbal, beyond the spoken. And with this, when we talk about experience and embodied experience, there's something to acknowledge, which also came up during the discussion, is that we all know loss, but to very different capacities. The world has ended before for many communities, but Indigenous and racialized communities at the front lines of environmental violence have felt endings for centuries, and colonial violence as well. And now communities in places that are more vulnerable to climate effects are feeling the devastations right now, not in the future, not in a distant moment, but right now. As also our panelists, Dino and Tammy, shared. Whereas for others in the global north, which I'm guessing most of the rest of the people here are based, well, it's more of a feared possibility. So yeah, how do we engage with fear for a future that doesn't smell, doesn't feel like anything yet, that we can't touch or taste? You know, you hear words around what's going to happen around ocean acidification or loss and damage or mitigation pathways or coastal erosion, and it feels very disconnected because they have yet to come into our cultural sphere. We don't understand a lot of what we're afraid of. And yet we're in touch with what's happening because the biomes are what we breathe, or what we eat, or what we absorb. And that deregulation, or that deregulation in our planet is actually affecting also our bodies and communities. So today I invite you to go into this part of the workshop and to see creativity not only as a way to release thoughts and fears or a way to express them, but more, and I think this is the powerful invitation, but more as an invitation to connect and to really sink into the grooves of our emplacement, of our belonging to a particular place, and also to remember, similar to what Dino was sharing earlier, to remember other ways of relating to the community of living subjects that we share a place with, and the local wisdoms, the place-based knowledges, the ancestral stories that can also guide us forward. So how do we do this work of remembering as part of this listening and going forward, and also handling all the fears that come up with thoughts around devastation and the future? So the goal of this exercise really is about embodiment and remembering. And this means a deeper embodiment for all of our environments, including urban ones. We can't forget that the built environment is also part of our places. We're not just talking about an idealized, romanticized vision of wild nature. It's where we live. And it also means accepting accountability, complicity, and impact, the way that we impact the places around us and the ones that we live in. But all of this so that we can shift towards a deeper feeling of collectivism and purpose. So just now we're going to share with you a short video explaining the exercise by my colleague Padma, who isn't with us right now, but she's recorded it for us beforehand. But just before, a minute before, I'd like you all to just take a moment, maybe just close your eyes, because we need to land right now. We need to land into where we are. Take a deep breath. And start to tune in to the images and sensations that might arise. Because to be fully present in our place is to reckon with how we exist in the webs of life. How do we interact with the natures to which we belong? So I invite you to attend to the place that you're in right now. Where are you? What are the lands and waters that have sustained you and your ancestors? Why does this place matter? Who and what is part of this web of life? And how is it changing? Now let's think a little deeper. What kinds of neighbors are we? And what's it like to have a relationship with a land where we are settlers in? Perhaps it's not where our lineages are from. How can we allow for other ways of connection to develop as we tend to the land's wounds? Can we hear them? So just take another breath and maybe come back here. Feel free to put on your video or don't, just so we can all see each other in our presence, in our place. And we'll show you now a short explanatory video focusing on this method of pebble poems, which we're going to engage in after this in our breakout rooms. And just keep in mind that although this refers to pebble poems, like we said in the email before this call, that the invitation really is to open up to other forms of creative expression. So think about it as pebble poems or pebble songs or drawings or dances or whatever you feel most comfortable with. All right, Kalina, feel free to share the video.
How can we keep one another afloat and create kinder futures when the grimmest projections on the climate crisis point to social collapse? How can we be better neighbors on this planet? And when do we begin? When is now. In order to create kinder times, we have to start practicing kindness now. We are honored that we get to reimagine and reshape our world with all of you. We invite you to be part of an expanding web of linked poems and art stretching across the planet. To link arms with another poet or artist in another part of the world, all you need to do is choose a creative seed from the When Is Now exhibit page. Select 2 lines, an image, or any element from the work of your choice, and include these in your own piece. This is just a fraction of what you'll see when you visit whenisnow.org. Here you can explore our collective garden and tend to the creative seeds and sprouts that move you. The online exhibit has works from Africa, Asia, Latin America, and the Pacific, and Europe, the UK, and North America. Soon, your contributions will be here too. This invitation to collaborate comes from the Climate Vulnerable Forum, an international partnership of countries most affected by a warming planet. CVF currently has 55 member nations representing 1.4 billion people, with a mere 5% share of global emissions. Pictured here is Culture Ambassador of CVF, Kathy Jatniel Kitchener, Climate Envoy for the Marshall Islands, and herself a poet. This invitation also comes from our home organization, the Institute for Climate and Sustainable Cities, an international group advancing fair climate policy and low-carbon climate resilient development. Agam Agenda is a special project born out of ICSC's conviction that we need the humanities and the arts to accompany us through the climate crisis. Our work in the Agam Agenda is to reimagine and widen the storytelling circles around the climate crisis so that more people can speak about it and more people can be heard. We are so thrilled that Climate Reality Africa, Canada, and the Philippines have responded to this invitation. So here we are in this Pebble Poem workshop. What is a pebble poem? As far as we know, the poet Jane Hirschfield first coined the term as a title for a series of short ecological poems she wrote. They are 2 to 6 lines long, about nature, and point to the plight of the planet. You can find some of her pebble poems online. One of the most exciting aspects of When Is Now is you can forge connectedness and solidarity through linking lines of poetry and art. Here's an example of how it's been done by others. Wangui Wakamonji in Kenya writes, "Will the old scattered seeds sprout again? What time does the class on memory start? Can you tell me? I don't want to be late." Robert Macfarlane in the UK carries these striking lines from Wangui and writes about a class on memory where the clouds and the trees are the teachers. Quote, "I don't want to be late because I want to remember. Make more room at the back there. Pack the hall to the rafters, creatures." Neha Sinha in India picks up Robert's lines and declares, "Pack the hall to the rafters, creatures. Take root, plant a seed. Tonight we decarbonize. Take root, plant a seed. Tonight we decolonize." Muralists have also carried the lines of poets in their work. Bangalore in India sprouted a mural from the poem seed of Wangui, and young artists in Yogyakarta, Indonesia sprouted a mural from the poem of Malebo Sempoti. Murals organized by Climate Reality Africa, Canada, and the Philippines respond to When Is Now poem seeds too. Notice that artists and poets pick lines from poem seeds that come from other parts of the world. As you prepare to write with your mentors, we invite you to think about unmaking places and to tell us stories of your place. What are the places that make you? Name them. It's very important to know and speak the names of our places. What have we made of the lands and waters you know? What places are being made, undone, transformed? How do we reimagine placemaking in the climate crisis? Your place may be your home or your hometown. It's also the biomes that support your life, be they forests, freshwater places, grasslands, tundra and highlands, oceans and coasts, or deserts and arid places. In the next video, climate reality leaders share their knowledge on each of these.
So just before turning into the breakout groups, I'm just going to place the exercise again in the chat. Please do ask questions if you have any questions. But the idea is, like Padma said, to choose 2 lines from any poem that is on this website, whenisnow.org. You can respond through writing, song, drawing, or any other form of creative expression. And the connection here is across countries, across regions, but also connection with our own embodied and lived experience. So I think Michalina is going to put you into groups now.
So the breakout rooms are open.